අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Friday the 7th of July 2023. Visit Sri Lanka. President Ranil Wickremesinghe highlights Sri Lanka's plans to uplift the tourist industry.
So exploit it to the full. Use it, and we are looking at new tourism.
Wants BIMSTEC to be a borderless tourist area.
It's one tourist area for anyone who wants to come from outside. Let's all work at it.
DDR clarified. Economic experts question why private bondholders were excluded from the debt strategy.
I feel that government at least must consider in a nominal or symbolic manner to share some burdens with the private investors and the other investors.
However, the CBSL chief says the exclusion was due to their insufficient contribution.
This is where one is the conclusion they can make is not very significant. That will complicate the whole process.
India cares. India is expected to allow Sri Lanka up to 12 years to repay its debt, says chairman of the Indian Export Credit Guarantee Corporation. Fitch glitch. The government's local debt restructuring plan is expected to reduce funding and liquidity risks for non-banking financial institutes, says Fitch. However, portrays non-performing loans as threats.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළත් විකාරම.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana First at 9. I'm AdaDerana joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now, in your top story tonight, President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized the importance of collaborative efforts among the BIMSTEC countries to develop the region into a thriving tourism hub, transcending national borders. Addressing the 67th Convention of the Travel Agents Association of India, President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized his belief that the tourism industry would significantly contribute to the country's foreign exchange earnings in the coming decade. He further highlighted that the comprehensive plans had already been formulated to enhance Sri Lanka's appeal as a tourist destination and stressed that promoting tourism could lead to an increase in per capita income.
The 67th Convention of the Travel Agents Association of India commenced at the BMICH in Colombo last evening under the theme Transcending Borders, Transforming Lives. President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Indian High Commissioner in Colombo Gopal Bagle also attended the occasion.
It is through collaborations and synergies that we can tap into the enormous potential of our partnership and create unforgettable experiences from both nations.
We must work together as neighboring countries to rebuild the sector in a resilient, inclusive, sustainable and innovative manner. India and Sri Lanka and the wider region possesses a unique opportunity to leverage their rich natural and cultural heritage, strategic location and robust bilateral and regional ties. Together, we can create a competitive and appealing destination for travelers worldwide, with India and Sri Lanka standing as two of Asia's fastest growing countries and economies.
You would have known that in the last few months, we have been able to not only resume the Chennai-Jaffna flights, which up till now are 4 flights per week, but soon, according to the alliance here, the operator, they are going to be available from 16th July every day of the week. We are working on resuming the ferries which have not plied for decades. Many of you would know, for example, the use of Indian rupees as currency of trade and transaction in which the Indian tourists can also make payments. Can you imagine how much boost tourism will get when we include, hopefully shortly, arrangements between our two agencies, concerned agencies of India and Sri Lanka for digital payments? Those initiatives are designed not only to help transcend borders and transform lives, but also build on the legacies which is our common heritage.
We'll assure you that Sri Lanka's tourism, the new plans that our Minister Harin is going to implement, will certainly make it a good stay, a wonderful stay, an incredible stay. When we faced the bankruptcy in Sri Lanka, now that we are getting out of it, and debt restructuring is taking place, we still have to remember that the balance of trade is not in our favor. So we have to ensure a positive balance of trade in time to come. And one of the means of raising funds, which is not debt creating, is tourism. So exploit it to the full. Use it. And we are looking at new tourism from the 2.5 million we have to go to 5 million to start with. Look at the upper end of the markets. Why not have $500 a night to $1,000 a night? We want to have large resorts. Yachting will start here with Mana as one of the headquarters. So there's going to be more and more items that we will add on to it to make Sri Lanka known that here is a tourist destination that is worthwhile visiting. When we are looking at attracting many of our visitors from Asia, from India, from East Asia, from South Asia, from West Asia, because it's easier for them to travel. The laws will be changed to accommodate our plans. Of the three regions in Asia, in our sides, East Asia, Southeast Asia has far more tourists than us. South Asia together may not have as many tourists as one or two of the East Asian or Southeast Asian countries or West Europe. So why don't we make our whole BIMSTEC area one borderless tourist area? It's one tourist area for anyone who wants to come from outside. Let's all work at it. Let's think about it. And you can develop a large tourist industry where there'll be millions and millions of people visiting our region and making it prosperous for the people in our country.
Meanwhile, Fitch Ratings says that the government's local debt restructuring plan is expected to reduce funding and liquidity risks for non-banking financial institutes. However, existing weak economic conditions and non-performing loans are still a threat to the sector. The agency said that ratings for the non-banking financial institutions will remain on a rating watch negative due to the ongoing economic crisis and will be re-evaluated when more economic stability returns and clearer direction on the domestic debt restructuring plan is given.
The domestic debt restructuring plan, which mostly includes provident funds of the country, not including the banking sector, has reduced the risk of generating funds for the non-banking financial sector. 8% of the total assets of the entire non-banking financial sector as of March 2023 is through government debt securities. Fitch noted that direct impact on the banking sector from the restructuring plan would negatively affect asset quality and the earnings of this sector. The rating agency said that capital markets are still highly volatile despite the positive movement that was seen following the DDR proposal. Any resistance from other government debt holders could also hold back the proposal and raise fresh doubts for the domestic financial system. Fitch said other than the risks of the DDR, the non-banking financial sector still faces risks due to economic contraction, increased non-performing loans, and increased funding costs. The rating agency said that the negative ratings given to the non-banking financial institutes and finance leasing companies will be reviewed, following more economic stability and analysis on how the economic downturn will affect the sector.
Now, senior lecturer of the Department of Economics at the University of Colombo, Dr. Priyanka Dunasinghe, says that the government should consider sharing the debt burden with the private sector in order to ensure that there is fair and equal treatment in domestic debt optimization strategy of the government. In our new segment, Debt Treatment What's Next, Dr. Dunasinghe expressed his views on why the domestic debt restructuring proposal lacks fair and equal treatment.
If you look at on the ground of fairness, there are a number of issues related to the plan that government has presented with respect to domestic debt restructuring. Number one is that government has failed to share the burden among all the stakeholders. Even if we take out the banking sector, government should have covered private investors and other investors and stakeholders who have bought bonds. In that context, I think only covering superannuation fund is, I think, to a certain extent unreasonable. At the end of the day, all have invested in bonds, but only bonds held by the superannuation fund is restructured. Number two is that given the coupon rate at 9%, maturing at 2038 means sizable interest lost will incur to the superannuation fund, including the EPF and ETF. We know the average return to EPF, ETF remain at somewhere around 11 to 12% per annum, but at this moment, the 9% coupon rate means that sizable interest income loss will take place with respect to the members. This certainly connect with the social protection related expenditure that government may have to bear in future, because when these funds and the retirement funds are affected in this way, people will find it difficult to cover their retirement age related expenditure, and at the end of the day, government may witness a sizable increase in poverty and other related issue, thereby forcing government to increase its expenditure related to social protection. I feel that government at least must consider in a nominal or symbolic manner to share some burdens with the private investors and the other investors except the banking sector. That may be the future for a reasonable and very much equal treatment.
Meanwhile, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe says primary dealers and individual bondholders do not represent a significant portion of the government's bond portfolio to be included in the government's domestic debt restructuring plan. Addressing the monetary policy review yesterday, the central bank chief said that only the sectors that can contribute to the government through taxes or restructuring were considered in the domestic debt optimization strategy.
There's complaints about private bondholders, both as well as primary dealers, not being covered. Yes, they pay taxes, but in principle, in terms of sharing the pain, why were they excluded?
Two things. One is that here fairness is in terms of contributions that each sector community making to the government in terms of relief. The contribution can be made through taxes, through restructuring their portfolio. So if you take the EPO, obviously we know the government has given a concessional rate. That's why they think there is equity that for them to at this point cannot make a contribution compared to others, as I said already even earlier, banking sector of 50% contribution. Individual holders, if you say they are rich people, every rupee they earn extra, they have to give back 36 cents for the government in terms of taxes. Whereas 14%, 14 cents by the EPO. And primary dealers also 30% corporate tax. Everyone else 30 cents to $1, 1 rupee compared to that is equity in principle. Secondly, even if you think that we should tax them or increase or make a contribution, and look at the contribution that they can make. All individual holders is only 1% of the treasury bond portfolio. Out of 9 trillion is about 90 billion. And the primary dealers is 0.9%, even lower. So if you cut 100% of those two, still that would not make any significant contribution to what is required. And also equity, the fact that if we are going to tax them, make them contribute, and question why not others also, why not the banks? Well, that's the same thing. I mean, this is where one is the contribution they can make is not very significant. That will complicate the whole process. Instead of this limited number of debt exchange, you have to call everyone, even you people have to submit all this and get the bond even small value. Exchange would make it much more complicated. It's not worth that effort given the complications, and also insignificant contribution, and also equity in terms of their contribution to the government debt service relief in terms of either taxation or the restructuring. Private dealers only so perform the intermediary function. They are the ones who brings in all the investors and make them invest and distribute this thing among the investors. So for this system to run, for government to be able to roll over or raise funds from the private dealers is a necessary agents in this business. Only the non-primary dealer market participant is the EPF, because given the size, we are given them access, direct access, without a primary dealer. Everyone else, even ETF, all funds, everyone should come through a primary dealer to make the investments.
Now India is expected to allow Sri Lanka up to 12 years to repay its debt owed to help ease the country's financial difficulties. According to the Indian Export Credit Guarantee Corporation Limited's chairman cum managing director, India is making plans to allow Sri Lanka to pay back its debts, which are supposed to be repaid in 3 to 4 years over a period of 12 years. He added that interest rates will reduce due to the inflation and the war in Ukraine. According to the External Resources Department, the island nation, which is facing its worst economic and political crisis in over 7 decades, owes $1.7 billion to India as of the end of March 2023. This comes after India previously extended a $1 billion credit line to Sri Lanka during the crisis. Is Sri Lankan Airlines having a shortage of pilots? Parliament clarifies after the short commercial break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්. වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි. ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්. අපේ ගෙදරත් ආපිකෝ මෙට්‍රස් තමයි. මාදිලි රසකින් යුත් මෙට්ටලුවේ ප්‍රමුඛයා. ආපිකෝ මෙට්‍රස් සැපනින්දට සැප මෙට්ට.
Welcome back. Now in Parliament today, Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva reiterated that Sri Lankan Airlines is not experiencing a shortage of pilots, adding that issues have arisen due to the lack of dedication of the pilots. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena told the Parliament that the President will soon make an appointment to the vacant position of the Inspector General of Police.
ශ්‍රී ලංකන් එයාලයින් එක ඇමතුමත් කියන්නේ අනෙක් අයත් කියන්නේ පුළුවන් නම් කැමති නම් යන්න. මෙතන ඉන්න එපා. දැන් මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? දැන් ඒ වෙනුවට ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන නෑ පිටින් බදව ගන්න. එක 100ට වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක් ඉල්ලුම් පත්‍ර දාලා තිබුණා කරු අමන්ත්‍රීතුමිය. නමුත් එකම එක්කෙනයි ශ්‍රී ලංකන් ගුවන් සේවයට නැවත බැඳුනේ. අනිත් එක්කෙනෙක්වත් ආවේ නෑ. මොකද හේතුව ඒ අය බැලුවා ගණන් කොහොමද හම්බෙන්නේ කියලා. එතකොට කිව්වා මෙහෙමයි මෙච්චරයි අපි දෙන්නේ.
ගුවන් යානා 26ක් තියෙනකොට නියමෝ හිටියේ 316යි කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැතුව ගුවන් සේවය ගෙනිච්චා. දැන් තියන්නේ ගුවන් යානා 15යි නියමෝ 266ක් ඉන්නවා. මෙතන ප්‍රශ්නේ ගුවන් නියමෝ නැතිකම නෙවෙයි ගුවන් නියමුවන්ගේ කැපවීමක් නැතිකම පමණයි තියෙන්නේ.
මේක දැන් අද බැලුවොත් අදත් ගරු ඇමතුමා ඩකා ෆ්ලයිට් එක පැයක් ප්‍රමාදයි. එතකොට හොංකොං ෆ්ලයිට් එක පැය 2ක් ප්‍රමාදයි. බැංකොක් ෆ්ලයිට් එක පැය 3ක් ප්‍රමාදයි. අද දවසේදී හැබැලුවා. ඒතර මේ ෆ්ලයිට් ඩිලේ වීම තුල අනිත් ජාත්‍යන්තර ෆ්ලයිට්ස් වලටත් බලපානවා. ඒ හින්දා අද අපි ශ්‍රී ලංකන් එයාලයින් එක දිහා බැලුවොත් එහෙම ගරු ඇමතුමා මේක රටට ආර්ථික පාඩුවක් විතරක් නෙමෙයි ජාත්‍යන්තර වශයෙන් අපකීර්තියකුත් අපේ රටට ඇති වෙන ආයතනයක් බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා.
ගරු අගමැතිතුමාගෙන් අහන්නේ පොලිස්පතිවරයෙක් මොකද්ද මේකට හේතුව? ඒ කියන්නේ ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා එතුමාගේ නිර්දේශිත නම ව්‍යවස්ථා සම්පාදක මණ්ඩලයට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නට ඕන. ඒක ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න දින 11ක 12ක සති දෙකක කාලයක් ගැනීම මම දන්නේ නැහැ මොකද්ද හේතුව කියලා. ජනාධිපතිතුමා නම එවනකන් ඉන්නේ නැතිව ගරු කතානායකතුමනි. මේ පිළිබඳව ජනාධිපතිතුමා විමසා හෝ මේ ඉදිරි පැය 48 ඇතුලේ මේකට තීන්දුවක් ගන්න කියලා ගරු අගමැතිතුමා.
ජනාධිපතිතුමාට තියෙන බලතල අනුව ජනාධිපතිතුමා නම් කරන ලබනු ලබයි. ඒ අනුව තාම ඉක්මනින් ඔබතුමා කියන පැය 48ට ඉස්සර වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒ කියන්නේ කලබල තත්ත්වයක් නැහැ. දැනට පොලිසිය රට පුරා ඇති සේවාව පිළිබඳ අවශ්‍ය සියලු කටයුතු දිස්ත්‍රික්ක ප්‍රධාන DIGලා විසින් කරගෙන යනවා.
ඔබතුමා කිව්වා මේ ඉතාමත්ම ඉක්මනින් ඒකට කටයුතු කරනවා කියලා. හැබැයි ඔබතුමා දන්නවා ඒ පත් කිරීම ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවෙන් සනාථ වෙන්නට ඕන. ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවේ මමත් ඉන්නවා. අගමැතිතුමත් ඉන්නවා. ලබන සතිය හමු වෙන්නෙත් නැහැ. ආයේ හමු වෙන්නට යොදලා තියෙන්නේ ඊළඟ සතියේ. එතකොට ප්‍රමාද වීම තවදුරටත් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා.
හදිසි තත්වයක් යටතේ එහි මූලාසනයේ දරන කැඳවන ඔබතුමාට ඕනෑම අවස්ථාවකදී ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාව කැඳවන්න පුළුවන්.
Meanwhile, State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinghe says that the government has decided to continue with the existing payments of allowance for elderly citizens, disabled persons and kidney patients until a new criterion is introduced. Speaking at Parliament today, Minister Semasinghe further noted that the Welfare Benefits Board has received a total of 702,000 appeals and 9,400 objections against the Aswasuma Welfare Benefits Programme.
අස්වැසුම සුබසාධන ප්‍රතිලාභ දීමනා අභියාචනා 7,02,000ක් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම විරෝධතා 9,400ක් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා. ජූලි මාසයේ 10 වෙනිදා වෙනකන් අභියාචනා සහ විරෝධතා ලබා දීමේ හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. අභියාචනා සහ විරෝධතා එල්ල වෙලා නැති කණ්ඩායම් වලට මේ මාසයේ ඉඳලා සැලසුම් කරපු පරිදි මේ මුදල් ප්‍රමාණය උන්ගේ ගිණුම් වලට බැර කරන්න අවශ්‍ය වැඩ කටයුතු කරනවා. අභියාචනා විරෝධතා පරීක්ෂා කරලා ගරු කතානායකතුමනි අවසාන ලේඛනය ඉදිරිපත් කරාම ඒ අය තවදුරටත් සුදුසු නම් ජූලි මාසයේ දීමනාවත් ඔවුන්ට අගෝස්තු මාසෙ වෙද්දී ලබා දෙන්න අවශ්‍ය වැඩ කටයුතු කරනවා. මේ වැඩිහිටි දීමනාව ලැබීමට සුදුසුකම් ලැබිලා ඉන්න අය, කකුගඩු රෝගී දීමනාව, ආබාධිත දීමනාව ලැබීම සිදු කරන අය. ඔවුන් වෙනුවෙන්ම නිර්ණායක සකස් කරලා නැවත සංගණනයක් කරලා ඔවුන්ට ලබා දෙන තෙක් මේ ගෙවීම සිදු කරන ආකාරයටම ගෙවන්න ජනාධිපතිතුමා විසින් උපදෙස් ලබා දුන්නා.
Now in local business news, Sri Lankan shares closed higher today, aided by a rise in financial and consumer staple stocks. The Colombo Stock Exchange All-Share Price Index closed up 1.05% at 10,301.96 points, gaining for a fifth straight session. For the week, the index rose 9.1%, seeing its best week in nearly 2.5 years. LOLC Holdings PLC and Melstar Corp PLC were the top gainers in the CAC All-Share Index, rising 4.7% and 6.8% respectively. Trading volume on the CAC All-Share Index rose to 126.2 million shares from 120.1 million shares in the previous session. The equity market's turnover fell 3.02 billion Sri Lankan rupees from 3.23 billion rupees in the previous session, according to exchange data. The capital goods sector was the top contributor, while the diversified financial sector was the second highest contributor to market turnover. Foreign investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 262.1 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading 2.88 billion rupees of shares, the data showed. Now let's have a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. Welcome back. Now in international news, Twitter has threatened to sue social media giant Meta over its new Threads app, claiming that the company has violated Twitter's intellectual property rights. In a letter addressed to CEO Mark Zuckerberg, a lawyer for Twitter said that the company has serious concerns that Meta platforms have engaged in a systemic, willful and unlawful misappropriation of Twitter's trade secrets. Meta launched Threads on Wednesday and has garnered more than 30 million sign-ups in less than 24 hours, apparently making it the most rapidly downloaded app ever.
Meta's new social media platform has been online for less than 48 hours, but the company says that Threads has gone viral with tens of millions of sign-ups, and now it has earned the angst of the rival service, Twitter, as well. As such, Elon Musk's platform, Twitter, has threatened to sue Meta after the launch of Threads. Twitter has serious concerns that Meta has engaged in a systematic, willful and unlawful misappropriation of Twitter's trade secrets and other intellectual property. In a letter addressed to CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Twitter also accused Meta of hiring former Twitter employees who had and continue to have access to Twitter's trade secrets and other highly confidential information. However, Meta spokesperson Andy Stone stated that no one on the Threads engineering team is a former Twitter employee. Meanwhile, Twitter owner Elon Musk said, "Competition is fine, cheating is not," in response to a tweet citing the news. Threads racked up more than 30 million sign-ups within approximately 18 hours of its launch on Wednesday. It emerged as the first real threat to Musk's Twitter, partly as it's able to take advantage of billions of Instagram users.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of AdaDerana First at 9. Stay in touch with us on www.adaderana.lk for further developments around the clock. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.